The rain had just let up. On any other day, Santalaria Street would have been filled with pedestrians and carriages flaunting their wealth. Today, Mendoza's main street was unusually empty due to the weather. Only a handful of wagons, government carriages on official business and a few private carriages rolled through the road. The humidity clung to the fabric and only added to the frustration. Carcel's carriage stumbled through the puddles lining the street. He ripped off his uniform jacket and cursed under his breath when he felt his carriage stagger and bumped over another puddle. After cursing out his useless carriage driver, his thoughts quickly returned to the events of that night. He leaned back into the seat and his blonde hair fell back. He mindlessly tapped on the seat cushion as he recalled Countess Portia's words on the night Inés had discovered them. "Lord Carcel, your graceful presence doesn't belong with her plainness. She would be better suited to a nunnery than the imperial ball. And she never hides her pride in front of the other ladies. You would be put off if you saw her arrogance on full display." Anyone with some wit would have noticed that Inés's demure outfit was far more valuable than the Countess's necklace. Lord Valestina did not shy away from lavishing his only daughter. But as the Countess had asserted, Inés was not known for her kindness, or her list of friends. To think that she overheard all that gossip. Carcel was overcome with guilt knowing that Inés had heard all that and then witnessed her fiancé entangled with another woman. Guilt. Such an emotion was out of character for Carcel Escalante de Esposa. He couldn't be feeling guilt for that treacherous woman. The image of Inés's silhouette was blindingly clear in his mind, but he couldn't recall her exact facial expression the moment she had discovered his affair. It was not uncommon for him to push undesirable memories from his mind, but this was not the case. He could not recall her face because— "My lord, we have arrived at the destination," announced the servant, interrupting Carcel's thoughts. Carcel stepped down from the carriage. Duke Valestina's grand manor greeted him. It was a smaller replica of the family manor in the Duchy of Perez. Located on a mountaintop, it provided a sweeping view of Mendoza upon first glance. In fact, his father had once dismissed this manor as being overbearing to the point of foolishness. However, Carcel was hardly moved by the scenery. Each time he stepped foot on the grounds of this mansion, he was too preoccupied by the suffocation at having to play the role of the faithful fiancé and escort Inés Valestina to notice the scenery. Just thinking about the next few hours in her presence, or his dreadful future with her, made him choke on his own tongue. "Miss Valestina is waiting for you in the reception hall." Upon hearing these words, Carcel swallowed the lump in his throat. Despite his illustrious history of love affairs, he firmly believed that his promiscuity must end with his wedding. Cheating on a fiancée arbitrarily assigned at 6 years of age was one thing, but he couldn't accept cheating on a marriage blessed by the Archbishop of Mendoza. Ironically, this misguided sense of morality made him both look forward to and dread his upcoming nuptials at the same time. He had no hope for a happy marriage, but nonetheless believed that he must be married, happily or otherwise. Thus, he felt an indescribable fury and annoyance at the 6-year-old Inés who had selected him as her fiancé and doomed him to a life of marriage. But he was also fiercely devoted to the 23-year-old Inés who was soon to be his wife. There would be no other women after his marriage. All these women would soon become a part of his past. This meant he needed to get his fill of fun now. He didn't want to have any regrets when he would say his wedding vows. The memories of his many romantic pursuits would have to keep him going in the suffocating chastity of his future married life. Each day brought him closer to the day he and Inés would be blessed by the Archbishop. He had already tried his best to postpone the wedding by attending the military academy, and then enlisting in the Navy. Now, he had no more cards to play to postpone the inevitable. "Lord Carcel, please come in," Inés's calm, but flat voice greeted him. "Lady Inés." Carcel bowed and pecked a polite kiss on her hand. He was filled with panic and an unfamiliar guilt. His fiancée, of all people, should have never seen him with another woman. When he raised his head, the woman in front of him was the same as ever. Her dress was buttoned to the very top and her black hair was firmly tied back. Overall, her appearance was plain and hardly memorable. Now, he could finally recall how she had looked that night. Even when she caught him in the middle of an affair, her gaze remained wholly unmoved, just like she was staring at him now. "I imagine you have matters to discuss with me," she said. "I have had business with you for the past several times I called upon you. 5 days ago, and 2 weeks ago. I did not want you to make a trip in the rain just for my sake." Inés's polite reply thinly veiled her disregard for his calls. After all, she had just dismissed the fact that she had ignored him twice in the past 2 weeks. While this was the first time that Inés treated him as such, he should have seen it coming. Any fiancé would have been furious to discover their fiancé with a half-naked lady. Carcel grimaced. Inés, I know what must have crossed your mind that night. Carcel and Inés used to be playmates when they were young. Even if Inés had neither wanted to play with him nor considered him a mate for the past 17 years. Perhaps that was why she had doomed him to a boring life of a married man by choosing him as a fiancé over his cousin, the prince. He tried to push away his guilt by focusing on his annoyance. Yes, Inés Valentina de Perez was the reason that he was forced into a marriage he never wanted and struggling with the guilt he never asked for. Yes, she was the reason that the rest of his life would be no better than that of a monk. I don't follow, Lord Carcel. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Not at all, Inés cut him off in an obedient voice. How ironic, since a truly obedient woman would never cut a lord off in the first place. Inés. Neither of us want to have this discussion. Do we really need to continue? She asked. Unfortunately, Inés Valentina de Perez liked him. She liked him enough to pick him over the possibility of obtaining an imperial title, as was expected of someone with her birth. She had had several chances to change her choice, but she had always chosen him for the past 17 years. She had always been waiting for him. Her persistence suffocated Carcel, because he had no feelings for her. He had nothing to give back to her other than some excuses and pretty lies. This powerlessness suffocated him more than her plain outfits, her motionless face, or the fury at how she had doomed him to a married life. His guilt only grew stronger with each passing day. I can explain, Carcel said. In all honesty, he could not explain, but he could come up with appropriate excuses. After all, Inés knew little about the world, despite her superior and aloof attitude. He preferred that she stay ignorant about matters between men and women, especially before their wedding. He preferred to keep her in the dark about his promiscuity. Inés shrugged before Carcel had a chance to say his excuses. I don't need any explanations. My own eyes could decipher what happened, and I was not troubled by what I saw. Really? Is that all you have to say? He snorted. Lord Carcel. I am ready for any words of wrath you may have for me, Inés. But I have none. She certainly looked far from wrathful. In fact, she was smiling her rare smile. Surely, you must be a little mad at me. He couldn't believe this woman. I am not. You must have been mad at me, since you refused to see me for 2 weeks. The rain got in the way. I didn't want you to arrive soaked and dripping, she explained. Carcel could sense her sincerity in her distaste for a wet guest in her house, but she appeared unmoved by anything else. A tired sigh escaped Inés. This extended conversation is getting old very quickly. We were never a talkative pair, to be fair. Should I perhaps remind you that she was not your first woman? And most likely not the last. Carcel fell silent. Did you truly think I would be so clueless about your promiscuity? She asked without blinking. Her calm and familiar voice brought him back to their childhood, when they were once playmates. Inés was many things, but she was no fool. Carcel raised his eyebrows. And yet you are still not mad. Why would I be? The women you associate with is your business, not mine. But we are engaged, Inés, soon to be married. Once the words left his mouth, Carcel realized he was arguing against his best interests by pointing out the flaw in Inés's argument. He brushed the hair out of his face and tried to calm the anger rising in his voice. That engagement need not constrain you. We are yet to be married, so, do as you would like, with whomever you would like. Don't mind me, and don't mind explaining yourself to me, either. I am floored by your generosity of spirit for your betrothed, Carcel sneered in a sarcastic tone. But Inés, you are being ridiculous. Inés cut him off mid-sentence. No, I am not being generous. Her green eyes met his for a moment. A humid breeze pushed the onyx black locks from her face as she opened her mouth. I simply have no interest in your affairs, Carcel Escalante de Esposa. The damning words echoed in Carcel's ears, reminding the 23-year-old nobleman that he was mistaken. This woman had no interest in him whatsoever.